the thing to do when you're in a hyperinflationary environment, when you get your paycheck, is to immediately go out and spend that money.
Should we talk about Fanta and where they come from?
Fanta? What the heck?
Sure, I don't know anything about Fanta.
Business.
You don't know about Fanta? You don't want to know
I know what
Fanta?
Fanta is.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't know any specific trivia about them.
So Fanta is a spinoff of Coca-Cola
Right.
in Germany.
In Germany, huh?
Because there was this little thing called WW2, and there's these people called the Nazis. Hopefully we're recording on this. This is a good story.
Okay.
So at the time, Coca-Cola, they had their trademark, all their ingredients came from a singular source.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously because of World War II embargoes, whatever, they couldn't get all the sourcing the materials. So they couldn't necessarily be called Coca-Cola anymore. So they changed the name.
Yeah.
So Fanta literally has its origins in the Nazi party. And then after post World War II, it was like, hey, we have a drink that's different than Coca-Cola, and let's go with it. And obviously, I'm missing a lot of steps, but that's the gist of it.
The only fun, well, I would say the only, but the best story that I know about a soft drink has to do with RC Cola having the second largest navy in the world for a brief period of time.
Like the Merchant Marines or something?
No, they couldn't take money from Russia or maybe prior to the fall of the wall or something like that. So they took possession of some submarines and sold them in response for some drinks. Yeah.
I will never fact check that, and I hope
it's too good to check. I don't want to know.
I don't want to know. I don't want.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. That's the best. I think that's the best example ever of that story of like, hey, RC Cola, they had a navy that could start World War III. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like I've probably gotten some of the details wrong on that over the years, but I'm not going to look it up.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
That could be a fun topic to go into of like, why is it in an era where it's never been easier to fact check something so quickly that we don't?
Well, that was actually one of the
cat videos in that story.
Real quick, Mark, can you, since you're going to be looking that way, put the mic on the other side of your face?
Which way?
Between you and Ryan.
This way? Okay.
Yeah.
How's that?
Got to cut that part out.
Nah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, that's one of the things I was gonna talk about was, or was gonna bring up at least to talk about was like hallucinating facts from an AI conversation, because that's a thing because I was testing out Bard, which came out this week.
Yeah.
The Chat GPT answer from Google.
What I find worrisome is the fact that it's not fact, but I don't think enough people realize that that is an effect of AI, the hallucination.
The hallucination,
factor.
Yeah. Or as they call it on Reddit, the Mandela effect. If you just misremember something and think that's just how it always was.
It used to be called fake news.
I thought it was called cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. They got to come up with some fancy way to make you feel better about not remembering things correctly.
That is not my recollection.
I don't know. Like, I always joke that like I have early onset Alzheimer's just because like my memory is so bad. So like I have to.
This is only the third time you've told the story today.
Is it? See,
got him.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, did I really? Oh, no. And I like in my head, I'm like, I know he's kidding,
but is he? Yeah.
So anyway, the hallucinations with the AI.
Well, I mean, they call it hallucinations, but it's really just, whenever an AI, for some reason, the way these large language model AIs work is they don't want to disappoint you or something. So they just kind of fill in facts confidently that may not have actually occurred or happened. But Bard is really bad about it because with ChatGPT, like the language model it stops at like 2021 or 22 or something like that, depending which one you're using. And if it doesn't have recent information, it'll just say, hey, I don't know. Like that happened after I stopped thinking about things. Mm-hmm. And Google comes up to the present. So I was asking it, just testing out the boundaries, like how does this news analysis thing work? On the day that Bitcoin this week dropped to $26,000, it's telling me it hit a record high of $30,000. But it got other news stories correct that actually happened that day. So it was just kind of like,
So it's the whole like, we know this news will be worrisome, but let's try to please you.
Yeah.
So is it
False
searching?
news.
So it's probably crawling and searching across, and it's probably taking the high of whatever, even if it was misinformation or something. Maybe.
Well, I don't know if it's misinformation. It's just wrong timely.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe somebody posted and published it onto their webpage, and
Right,
but it
right.
hadn't actually. Maybe it went live and it wasn't supposed to.
it
And
could
and it
have.
got, so it took that as fact. But again, these large language AIs are interesting, but let's follow the money, right? It's like, here's my question, right? They're all going to continue to learn really quickly, and they'll probably catch up with each other. But who's going to capture the corporate money? Because that's the people that actually continue to pay, right? Like we're just talking about Slack, not a sponsor, but if they want to be, they should call us.
Yeah.
But literally, you've got Microsoft, who has a huge corporate marketplace, right? I mean, I use Outlook. It's the oldest thing on the planet, and it merges in several of the different email servers that I have, right? Different web addresses, but they have the largest client base to some degree. Like Google, yes, it's used across institutions, but it's really on an institutional level. That's who's, the big companies are the ones that are paying Microsoft big money, right? So Google is like small business owners. I mean, I don't know how many big corporations use like Google Sheets and that Google interface. It's my understanding that it's really more of a Microsoft.
Do you think
setup.
that like AI being out for everyone? I'm reading the
Don't
thing.
do that.
Don't
Oh, I didn't know where that was coming
I'm
from.
helping Sohail out.
Hit me in the
We're-
chin.
We're professionals here. We're professionals. But like, I agree. It's all about follow the money. And with AI being linked into like Zapier or the different integrations, the different APIs that are coming about and the different technologies, and some of what you're just saying about follow the money is like, then why are they even offering it to little guy to play with? And could it be, and I'm just offering this as a topic of conversation, could it be kind of like, hey, this is our charity work to just help see what people will innovate and see what tools they'll create from it? Because if the big money is the institutions doing the big APIs, the big structures, a little guy like me paying $30 to, summarize this article, I mean, or is the...
I mean, I don't think that you gotta put it out there for the plebes to use, so that it'll filter up to the decision makers in a corporation.
Right.
Like corporations are made of people, so the smart, and this is something I think I've been saying online a lot lately, is the smart people that survive in an AI future are going to be the ones that take advantage of AI. So it's not necessarily going to be, I don't think it's necessarily going to be an institutional, like Microsoft does this or our IBM does this, like at an institutional level. I think it's going to be people that utilize it within IBM or within Microsoft or within Walmart are going to be the ones that rise to the top and end up conquering more territory within the corporate landscape. Because AI is not coming to take your jobs; it's people that use AI that come and take your jobs. And this is a phenomenon I saw during the pandemic, particularly in the developer class. People that write software for a living had 3, 4, 5 jobs. It's not like an isolated thing. I actually had like 3 or 4 friends that did that. All the jobs were 80 to 120K a year.
Oh, right. So they were doing multiple jobs at once, saying, "No, I don't work anywhere else." They were full-time jobbing.
Right. Yeah. And they
It's
were
also called theft, but go ahead.
no, because
But
they
it
were
happened all over the place.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, it
Yeah.
actually happened in the construction industry. One of my friends, who was a regional vice president at a big construction supply company, found out that they had an employee that was repping for 2 different companies and getting benefits and retirement accounts.
But it's not theft if you're doing the work, if you're being productive.
Well-
and this is actually what you remember. This is like a pull quote from last week. We got to come up with some other way to monetize people. This about output, because people were like, there is so much wasted time in the average corporation, you don't notice it because you have a startup,
Right.
essentially. Everybody here is fully maximized for the most part.
Mhm.
But like in corporate America, I don't know the last time you've worked in corporate America, like it's like 80% meetings. Like you waste so much time, and not to mention the commute time, right? That's another, like, I mean, I'm dealing with a commute time right now, 4 hours a day. That's actually not uncommon for a lot of people that have to commute.
Mhm.
You cut out the commute, you cut out 80% of those meetings where you can be in like 3 meetings at once and just go, right?
Mhm.
And you're not thieving any time because you're still spending like 20 minutes a day writing software.
And I can appreciate that, but I'm also coming through the lens of a business owner,
Right.
and where literally I don't get to pay myself sometimes. So like if I am paying somebody for a full-time effort or full-time results, and that's one thing I've talked to Brian about.
That's not happening at like Salesforce though.
Right.
Or
but the thing is,
Walmart
like,
or something.
But one of the things that we talked about is, are you paying somebody for the results, or are you paying them for their time? And ultimately, you need to get to the business mindset of that you're paying for results and you don't care about their time. But then you just need to make sure you have a clear expectation of what those results are.
Yeah.
And then that's just my own personal hang up. So when I do hear somebody doing the 3 to 5 jobs, is the term overemployed?
Yeah. Remember we were talking about quiet quitting
Yeah.
a year ago? Now,
Yeah.
this is the big buzz thing, is overemployment. Is
Right.
What Mark's talking
And maybe
about.
I'm just jealous because I've never had that opportunity to be able to knock out 3 or 4 jobs and make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 doing one thing.
As we've talked about before as well, we talked about how the full-time employer 40 hours a week was originally like a cutback because people were working 100, 120 hours a week and they needed to get employment up. So they said, we're going to cut you back to 40 hours a week. And that way we're going to have 3 shifts, right? Get more people. But as technology has brought us forward tremendously, people like you and me, small business owners that have employees, even though our employees are doing their job, are a little irritated that they have so much time and they're getting paid so much money to do
Right.
nothing. So like if maybe that's part of the paradigm shift and you just have to, I don't know. I don't know how you're going to have to adjust that, but like full time,
yeah.
I still have the contention that full time doesn't need to be 40 hours a week. You have to come up with another definition of full time. And the difficulty there is how, if you want to do something where you just say, we're going to do it based on quota, that's going to burn out people too, right? Because you're going to have the ones that work the hardest irritated that the ones that aren't doing the same type of work. I don't know. It's complicated, but
I mean, I think where we're headed, and we had this brief thing last week. We said post-scarcity society. I had some time to think about that.
Post-scarcity,
Mhm.
man, those are some
Mhm.
big fighting words.
Well, I mean,
Not
it's
really. Those sound like a smart. I'm glad I wasn't on that one.
it's all head towards
Too
like
smart for me.
the Star Trek world, right? Where pretty much everything can be free. It's just a matter of whether it is. So most of America that is in the workforce works for a bureaucracy that could probably be replaced with a modern invention like a pager or a fax machine. And this is just readily apparent to me from someone who's had a lot of dealings with government bureaucracies, which means that we are wasting a ton of money giving people make work to do. What if, so obviously we can afford to give people pointless jobs as a society. We have enough money theoretically floating around in the largesse.
But why? The why is important.
Yeah. No, that is the why.
We created the jobs and we created the processes when the companies, right? 85% of the GDP was created by small business owners, and those small business owners are in a constant state of creativity and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, right? Once you're a big company that's already got operations manual, standard procedures, and those protocols in place, those are the companies and the jobs that are bloated, that have a lot of a lot
Well,
of
I'm mostly
extra
referring to
people.
the federal government, though.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
Well,
But they're the worst. They're
Yes.
the worst because there's no controls.
Correct.
Well, also, I was just reading, and by reading an article, I mean reading a headline of an article, because who reads articles anymore? Is it was talking about universities and how, like, if you go, and nobody's going to fact check it. This whole thing, Roundtable, should be don't fact check.
Don't
this.
fact check me.
But
on
it
this.
was like, if you go back and look at what 20 years, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
like the amount of administrators was fractional compared to the amount of professors.
right.
And now in 2023, the amount of administrators dwarfs over the amount of professors.
Certainly in the public schooling system as well. I mean, that most of the prevailing paradigm for public schooling is the independent school district model, what we have here in Texas, for instance.
Right.
The most efficient version is the unified school district model, which is, I think, in like New York and Florida and other places. But because of the kind of tendency towards individualism and local control, which equates in our minds to better freedom, we end up spending about 70 or 80% of the budget goes to administrative costs.
Well, then you look at, like, I think moral hazard comes to play in here a little bit. I had to Google it to make sure it was the right term, but because I think it is.
Did you just fact check something on the
no,
show?
I just didn't want to sound like a complete idiot. But like Twitter, I think Twitter's a great example. Like, this is not a pro or against or any commentary on Twitter itself, other than the fact that, hey, they laid off 80% of their workforce and they're still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me that 80% of the workforce, they either were able to make some efficiencies or deficiencies efficient, or 80% of workforce weren't doing anything.
That's a big part of the conversation, was that they've built everything they're going to build. They probably had a lot of stuff that they hadn't even put out yet. And so the organization was minting cash. They had to find uses for that cash. And so they kept people employed. Now, it kind of was the icebreaker to allow all of the big tech companies to start laying off mass amounts of people that weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we talked about. One of our clients
Mhm.
did a video on, because was it like a year or two ago, or it might have been more than a year, probably like 4 years ago, when the coal miners were getting laid off, and it was like, hey, learn to code. And it was like, hey, coders, learn to work in a mine or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Learn a trade.
Right.
So it's kind of like egg in your face type of thing. Twitter employees seen sleeping on office floor as Elon Musk pushes tight deadline. I'm okay with that.
See, I pull this up too. Okay. I don't think you are, but
In hardworking people, like, that's how I was brought up. Like, if you had a job you wanted, you had a cot in your office and you worked your ass off.
yeah, I bring this up because yes, companies are laying off people. The workforce and unemployment happens. What happens to those jobs? Maybe I'm just asking, maybe is it possible that the employers make the employees work more?
Possibly, but I mean, like this is something that I don't necessarily have all the answers to it, but I do have a lot of experience in enterprise software as a market, and software does become feature complete over time. Like there's a company here. I think it's like I'm gonna say
Real Page.
Maybe Real Pages. It might be a different one, but no, there was the company that originally did the algorithm that was a search engine for Yahoo.
Hmm.
I can't remember what they're called anymore. I want to say Real Pages is probably wrong.
No, Real Pages at it's front office central here.
Yeah, but what they do now is because they had that huge win from Yahoo. And of course, Yahoo doesn't really exist in that form anymore.
Mhm.
But what they did is they took all that money and they started buying feature complete enterprise software that was not having new features created for it anymore, and they would just ride it out until the last customer left.
Mhm.
And they just went around and just milk it for the profits.
They're buying the annuity and they wanted the cash flow until there was no cash flow
Exactly.
left. Right. Yeah.
That is a viable business model in software. We don't really see the same thing so much in consumer facing software because they continue to innovate and create new stuff like Apple or Google or whatever.
Mhm.
But Twitter is still Twitter.
Mhm.
Twitter is still status microblogging, and it's largely unchanged from the very
Mhm.
beginning, other than they've changed the infrastructure behind it.
Mhm.
And so, like, to me, like, it is rational to say you can lay off 80% of the staff of Twitter and it would still be functionally operable. You just need to cut out a lot of the silly stuff that you were trying to do that was never going to add to the bottom line. And this is the problem with that. I think why people are sleeping on the floor and they're feeling overworked is because it was an indiscriminate firing. It wasn't like a measured drawdown. Like when you do that sort of thing, Meg Whitman, when she came into HP, she fired like 80% of the people. She did it over like 6 years. She didn't do it in one day. You know.
Well, if you look at a company like Twitter, right? So it was a novel idea and they wanted to build it out, as you said, to its completion. But once it gets to the completion, you just have all these coders, you have these people that are these engineers that are just they want to keep their job. They want to keep all the benefits. They want to keep everything, but they're not doing anything. So now I think what the good thing is you've got all these employees that are highly skilled in something that maybe had an idea of their own. Maybe they'll actually go out and do something with it. Now I think we're going to have a rougher time of it because credit conditions are going to be a lot tighter. People in private equity and venture capital are not really interested in funding new ideas right now because there's just not a lot of money and not a lot of exits. So, but there's a lot of ideas. When
it comes to Twitter specifically, it's kind of funny because like this article's from November, so we're about 6 months behind the curve on this conversation. That being said, I think it's still relevant, but like them like building off what you were talking about, Mark, and as far as like, hey, you get to a point where you're done, and what you just said, Frank, where you get to a point where you've built the thing, because you're servicing investors, having all those developers on staff, couldn't upper management like claim that they are working on the next thing and that's why they need to keep raising capital or building their war chest, and having the people on staff is an indication of why they need the war chest?
That's why they're always, I don't care if it's like a microorganism, a human, a company, government. Once it's in creation, it wants to stay alive, right? And once it's not going to get any smaller unless it actually goes out of business, right? You're either growing or you're dying. In this case, what I was thinking about with like all the people that have worked or are working in enterprise software, and I'm talking specifically about people that are in the IT space coding. We needed them a lot when we came through this technological revolution known as the internet, right? Al Gore's creation, is that what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly correct.
But we needed them to create the software to create our new paradigm, and now we're in a new paradigm where we don't need someone to translate natural speech into something that you want it done at the end. So that's a big difference. We've been training for over how many years? 20 years, like as far as I can think of from whenever I graduated college, where I was using WordPerfect, where you had to save it onto a disk so you didn't lose your paper. And now everything automatically auto saves. You don't need people building those tools. The tools are there, and with natural speech, what do you do with those people? Because just as you can't train a truck driver who literally could not stand school and did everything they could to not have to go to school to code, how are you going to convince someone who does coding to drive a truck or to turn a wrench? Because they still haven't created yet machines that will be able to do that. Right. So I think that's going to be the pendulum swinging the other way.
Back to the labor force, like trades force.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think if you let evolution take a place,
people don't need to work. People need to feel useful. Like
people need a struggle.
They need to feel like they're needed, right? But people don't. There's not an inherent need to start a business, create capital, create value for an employer. There's a need to make enough, create enough resources for food, clothing, and shelter. Sure, but if that's taken care of, people just want to feel useful. That's why people don't stop working.
Then we get to experiment 25 again.
Yeah,
and I think we're at that crossroads in history where, like, I think we're getting closer and closer to a universal basic income type situation. I think we're getting closer to, helping the people that don't necessarily either have the desire, the will, or capabilities of fending for themselves. Because like you see on TikTok all the time, people are are like, they don't, why do I have to work to survive? Why do I got to work to feed myself? It's like, history. I mean, the life, but we're also getting to a point where maybe that's just not the way it has to be anymore. I don't know. I think Sohail wants to jump in.
Oh no, I just wanted you to see my little smirk, and
especially
smile.
while we're talking about labor.
Yes.
See, we can see your disappointment.
But I mean, there's always have someone else in this studio that is saying,
you know what? I want to go ahead and put an asterisk around this part of the conversation, because what you just did, Ryan, was that you just told Sohail that he was going to get a universal basic income and he doesn't have to work.
That's definitely not it. I don't believe in UBI as a solution. I'm not yanking. That's not. The UBI thing is not what I was smirking at. It was people wanting to feel useful. People are going to work even if there's no incentive to profit incentive, right? What Mark is saying about, post-scarcity world. Why would people still work? That's why people want fulfillment. People want to work towards something. That's human nature.
Question: is that Frank in your lap?
Oh yeah, I'm posting it. I can multitask. Hold on.
Yeah, the $1 trillion coin. We were going to talk about that. The increasing the debt limit. This is actually kind of in the similar vein. We're talking about post scarcity. There's no scarcity on money. Mm-mm. So what's going on with this coin?
We're talking about the $1 trillion coin?
Yeah, the $1 trillion coin. Has this ever been done before? I keep hearing it brought up.
I honestly don't know enough about it to speak intelligibly on the subject. I will tell you what I think is really interesting is I just remember seeing before that, like, there is $1,000 bill. There's like different denominations of crazy high bills that you never see because it's what like banks and governments use with each other. So can you imagine just pulling that out at 7-Eleven saying,
can you break 1,000?
This? Well, is it the similar thing? Is that what they're talking about, or what's the point of having?
I can imagine that, and that's what happened in 1922 with the Germans. Where they're bringing all their barrels of wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread.
Oh yeah, well that's happening right now in all sorts of places in Argentina and in places like that. And the whole idea there is that like you've got rampant inflation, which is why everyone's raising the interest rates. That's why the Fed is trying to control. But yeah, it's like the thing to do when you're in a hyperinflationary environment, when you get your paycheck, is to immediately go out and spend that money.
Right, because the more you wait, the longer it's less it's gonna be worth.
It's gonna be worth, right? So that does what? It creates even more unemployment or more inflation. Because again, inflation is very simple. One thing: more money chasing fewer goods. Period. Right. And all of those things are exacerbated by each other. So supply chain, fewer goods, people that don't want to work, don't want to be productive. Less goods.
Why are you pointing at Sohail?
I'm not. I was pointing out the general.
People not at this table.
People not at this table. But they're like Elon Musk said it before, and there is no horn of plenty. Right. Someone has to make something that goes into the container that then is actually like put onto a bus, or truck that is put onto a shelf, which is then taken off the shelf, which is then put into the mail, which is sent to you. You need people to do that.
Right. And again, it's
boring.
It's right? very, Atlas Shrugged-y, like at some point, all the creators are going to shrug but.
But that's actually less true now though than it used to be. I mean, have you ever seen videos of like the Amazon warehouse floor? Mm-hmm. I mean, that is cool as crap.
Oh, all the robots.
Yeah, but it's like a little ballet of like shelves flying around, things flinging off of it and whatnot.
But the thing is about that is like as technologically advanced as that is, and as cool as that may seem, it's also balanced with all the bad press of, hey, you spent 33 seconds on your bathroom break. That's one strike.
Does that happen anymore?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm sure it does.
There's a good friend of mine who switched careers into Web3 because his first major middle manager job was at Amazon, and he thought it was going to be, it's great. Working at Amazon, and I'm not like a factory worker, but it was in a factory. And their rules keeping is so strict. They have like these honor bars where you can go and like grab snacks or whatever off the shelf, and you swipe your ID badge. He just left his ID badge on the other side of the factory floor, so he's like, it's okay. I'll grab it and then I'll come back on my next break and I'll swipe it twice. And they pulled the video of him taking it off of an honor bar, taking it without paying for it, and put him on a 6-week suspension while they investigated whether or not he stole from the snack bar. He's like, screw this. I'm just going to get another job, which, you know.
So Hill, from now on, we're going to have a swipe system with all the drinks and snacks and in the green room.
Just to make sure.
Yes.
Well, Ryan's been trying to implement a system where we all live here.
Yes.
And
yes.
where he pays us in Harper bucks, reminiscent of the coal mines where we, you know, can only buy goods in the company store.
The company town.
I actually, you know, what's funny about that is like, I do envision a time when maybe like I have not a TikTok house, but like maybe some sort of like living situation. So like if you do have like some interns or like entry level people that would want to be, and I'm not trying to make a joke at all.
No,
I think that would be cool and very helpful for people to be like, hey, you have a 1-year contract, but while you're here, you also have a place for rent free. You know,
and I know you. I'm switching to myself, but I don't feel like putting myself up there. But I know you have the most altruistic. Oh, let me turn Mark shut off. Most altruistic approach to this, and the
right. But I'm also sitting next to the New York guy who's immediately going, "Ooh, I can indenture servitude. How much money can I save?
What do you want me to do? You're willing to do it. I'm willing to.
I'm a money guy.
I'm willing to monetize
you
it.
think you can pull it off? You think? I mean, it's cost to make some phone calls.
Hold on, I think I can get that to work. I don't know how we're going to get that through the regulations. How do I keep the unions out?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Texas. You'll have no problems.
And all of a sudden, it's like, yes, it's rent free, but hey, it's $20 off your paycheck for the trash. It's also $100 a week off your paycheck for the cleaning.
I think I saw that. Wasn't that movie called Ready Player One?
That's right. That's true. Well, I think Elon Musk proposed something like that this week. It was in the news. I saw the clapback headline was Elon Musk is proposing company towns for SpaceX or something like that. So I was like, yeah, the concept's not dead. It just keeps getting recycled.
Well, the thing is, like, I think in a lot of ways, like right now, that I actually just had a random thought, a random idea, and it's not a new thought. It's there's people, like you said, Elon Musk, and it's like, and like Sohail said, like mine's an altruistic and like value add, but somebody not knowing who I was, or you know, it could easily be seen as a negative.
Well, the future,
I mean, hell, Mr. Beast, like what, cured 100 people blindness, and that was not a good thing. It's absurd.
Well, I mean, the future of what you're talking about, and this is actually a trend in Web3 right now, is creating guilds instead of companies.
Really?
Where, because it makes it.
Can you go into that a bit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it goes back to something we talked about last week, which is DAOs. DAOs are a structure that are an evolution of multi-signature wallets, which allow multiple people to make decisions about shared property, which is essentially what it comes down to. And so if imagine if you had a cryptographically secure way to share your bank account with everybody on the team, and you are able to issue cryptographically secure shares in the company, right? So you could design a governance not where everybody could write a blank check, but where anytime a check needed to be written, decision makers could do it with the authority of the rest of the guild or the rest of the stakeholders. And that's what we're talking about. It's not necessarily that everybody can write a blank check. It's just that everybody has ownership in the process.
So, and forgive me or correct me if I'm wrong, or if this is not a possibility at all. What I'm hearing is like, I hear what you're saying, but my brain goes to, could this evolve into some sort of digital feudal system where you do have...
It could evolve into anything, really.
Well, I'm just saying, because like in a lot of ways, especially with DAOs, if you have, if like everybody's decentralized, everybody has a say, and then, okay, who's in charge? And then eventually you get the structure where it's like, okay, we need to at least have one person in charge. And then like I could literally see that evolving into, again, I don't know much about it, so it's hard for me to, too much
the thing that we know from years of evolved states and evolved corporations is that things hit a wall at scale. And if you have the infrastructure, it's far more efficient to scale out than it is to scale up. And you could take a traditional example of Microsoft's evolution. Actually, Microsoft's a bad example. Let's talk about like IBM's evolution versus Amazon's evolution. The reason why Amazon is the way it is today, why it is a giant in the IT world, is that Bezos made a rule. And the rule is, if you need something done from the IT department or you need something done from the marketing department, you're not sending an email, you're accessing an API. And your department needs to figure out how to programmatically interface with every other department that you need stuff from. Otherwise, you're not going to get stuff done and your department is going to fail. And so that is why we have programmatic cloud computing from Amazon, is because the IT department developed it that way. And they said, well, it works so well internally, let's offer it to the public. And then they immediately became the biggest cloud provider in the world. And so what Web3 is a decentralized version of Amazon versus IBM, which is a top-down system, which is the old way of designing a corporation. A CEO, a board of directors, or like not board of directors, but a directorial layer of management, and the middle management, and then workers, right? And so that it works, but the bigger a corporation gets, the slower decision-making gets, and it's hard to turn a battleship around, right? Whereas this modular, programmatically interfaced system of Web3 or Amazon's management structure is very Darwinian in a respect, because when systems don't work for the people that are partnered with it, it dies off. It doesn't see any use, and it goes away, and the pieces of it get absorbed into other parts of other systems. And that's the way Amazon works within its corporate structure, and it's the way Web3 is evolving. It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that everything in Web3 is a guild. It just means that some things in Web3 are guilds. Some things look very much like startups. Some things look very much like nonprofits.
So to go down the guild framework and liken it to, say, online player games, like, does that open it up for a situation like Leroy Jenkins, where you have someone who's just like, F it, let's go, and then they could potentially bring the whole thing down?
Well, no, but it's like a cell structure, right? Things that depend on Leroy might go down or might see an impact, but not everything depends on Leroy, because Leroy is only, beholden to his stakeholders and partners. Hence the decentralization. Think of it like these.
He's talking real big.
Well, think about like this pattern on the wall. These little hexagons here.
Yes.
Right. This hexagon only has 6 partners, right? And it is connected to those 6 other shapes that it's connected to. The ones over here are not connected to the ones over here. So if each one of those represents a DAO or a department in a modular organization, there might be an impact over here, but it's really only going to directly affect the ones that it's very closely associated with.
Got it.
I wanted to bring this to, have y'all heard of the like Sears case study? Like what happened with Sears, and when they failed, the CEO that took over it treated each department like its own corporation.
Yeah, that's actually, they probably did the single best bankruptcy, structured bankruptcy in, as far as I'm concerned, probably ever. They had, if you think about where Sears came, they're the first, talk about someone who missed the boat. They were Amazon, right? The Sears catalog, you could buy, even when I was in high school, the Sears catalog, you could buy a engine for a VW Bug in the back of that Sears catalog, and they didn't digitize. They didn't go digital, right? They didn't create a marketplace, right? And if you remember, Amazon originally just books, right? So then you realize that if I can sell books, I can sell anything online, right? But going back to the subject of Sears had created so many things in-house. They had Die Hard battery. They had Craftsman tools. They had Maytag washers. It was Maytag, right? Was it Maytag?
Yes, Maytag.
Yeah, they had so many different little corporate entities, and they said, we need to get as much shareholder value out of this as possible. So we're going to spin all these out, and the profitable ones will survive on their own, and the rest of them will get a zero.
I don't know if this is relevant, but when you were talking about Sears, it just made me feel very sad for like Austin, because Austin's like 19 years old, and he's never been able to experience Incredible Universe. Do y'all remember that?
I don't recall. What was
You don't
Incredible
remember
Universe?
Incredible Universe, or maybe it's a Texas thing. Did
I grew up
you
here.
know Incredible? Do you know Incredible?
I mean, I grew up in East Texas, so
Oh,
we didn't have
oh my
we didn't
God.
have an Incredible
Oh my
Universe.
God.
I grew up in Plano.
Incredible. Okay,
AI hallucinating.
circling back. No, Incredible Universe. I can't believe y'all don't know what this is. It's basically like think Best Buy
Mhm.
times 20.
I think I would have remembered that. I
Like-
didn't.
Is that Amazon?
Yeah.
No, I'm
Well, I
talking
mean-
about the size of the store.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
an
yeah.
on-site store.
Right.
So like
remember that.
several
But
of the
electronics or what?
electronics. It
Yeah.
was all electronics. So several of the like you know how Fry's
Yeah.
stores feel a little too big.
Mm-hmm.
Those were a lot of the Fry's stores were old Incredible Universes.
Okay.
But the structure of them felt more like an IKEA.
Hmm.
Where because in IKEA you have to walk through that path.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's how Incredible Universe was, but with like all the coolest gizmos and gadgets and
Wow.
technology. But my point to bring that up is you just can't have that anymore. And you to bring up Sears again, you can't have Sears anymore. But
I think it
I don't
kind
know.
of, again, you've got the tools to make the tools. The concept is sound, but then again, like who's literally going to walk around? You have to be, you're physically dependent upon being close to an Incredible Universe where you could have just out in the middle of nowhere, America, you could have a warehouse that can ship out that part
Well-
that the one person in Peoria, Illinois wants.
Well,
that one
Amazon,
piece,
I
right?
think Amazon's at least trained me. I will only speak for myself. Amazon has trained me so well that going to the grocery store is a hassle. And obviously I don't eat that healthy and I eat out all the time because I'm a single workaholic.
Mhm.
But I don't really go to the grocery store I don't really go to the grocery store that more. And I think a lot of it's in part because anything I need, I order from Amazon.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't really order food from Amazon, but I probably could from like Uber, obviously.
Yeah.
But going back to like all the TVs that are in here
Mhm.
were bought from Amazon, you know?
See, I'm a little different. I'd rather just buy something really heavy and horrible from Amazon to make the driver drop it off. Let's go get a whole weight set. Hey, can you bring that?
I mean, if it's free delivery, I'm all for that.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
got to make sure that you're not getting charged for delivery costs.
This speaks to a totally different thing, but once you actually do have a little extra time, it is kind of nice to get out of the house and go and do stuff. Now
There he is.
you're nowhere near there. Hey, welcome.
What's up?
A little late, bro.
Trying to do it like last 2 minutes. Show up.
Hey, that's fine.
There you
It's
go.
good. We
Maybe
can.
I go in the credits and I didn't have to actually do anything or provide anything for the show.
That's great. I'm going to go to the restroom. I'm just going to leave the check right.
There you go. So it's been interesting. We've been talking a lot about labor and like Twitter and AI and disruption of workforces. I mean, we've been kind of all over the place, but a lot of it has been singly focused on workforce and labor and
Yeah.
and that kind of
Scarcity.
scarcity, inflation.
So did
Yeah.
you talk about the Kevin Kelly podcast with Tim Ferriss?
I did not know.
No, it's a great podcast on just the.
You should probably wait until your mic is on.
It's on. The mic's
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm not. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
So everybody listen to me like my wife listens to me.
I'm sure
She's
she
not at all.
does.
No, she does.
There you go. Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, Kevin Kelly. Tim Ferriss,
God.
Kevin Kelly. His
The ear on my shoulder when I just like, oh. She better.
Oh no. My wife is fantastic. I don't deserve my wife.
Ditto.
And no, she doesn't watch this show. Is this a show? Is this what this is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. How's this work right here?
You talk into the.
I don't know.
Talking into the
I don't know.
microphone is
You were
not that hard.
you were ridiculous for having me on.
It is hard.
To
It-
talking to a microphone. Well, to be fair, it was Mark's goal.
Oh, you're the mastermind behind everything.
I suppose so.
Yeah, I'm trying to vertically integrate myself out of decision making.
That's smart.
I know.
Especially
Which is
because
interesting. Like that's the smartest thing you do is
To no longer make decisions.
yes.
I think that's where people with lower IQs have a better chance. They just naturally do that. They're like, I'm not smart enough. I just need to have Mark do it.
Just tell me what to do and
You
I'll do
know,
it.
you know,
This is what friends do.
a
They give it
smarter
to-
guy would be offended because he would know what that meant. Luckily, I'm not offended. I don't know what that says
Oh
about
my
me.
goodness. That's
Anyway.
fantastic.
But no, the Kevin Kelly episode just talked. He talks a little bit about the tasks become different
Mhm.
with the AI, but the job is still there. It's just everybody, increases their productivity,
Mhm.
and the specific tasks that they have to do in their job are a little bit.
I'm saying
different.
yes and no.
I mean, I gotta
I'm
say,
defaulting to Kevin Kelly on this one.
I love writing with AI. Like, I don't do the writing that I get paid for with AI, but like I've always sucked at creative writing. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say I always sucked. I haven't been good at creative writing since I was a child, and had a much more unrestrained imagination than I have as an adult.
Mhm.
And as we've talked about, AI is really great at hallucinating, which is a fancy word for coming up with things that aren't there.
Mhm.
And so,
Well, that'll allow at least maybe some thought on your part to catch it.
well, I mean, so that's the thing that it does really well is gets past, I think, the blank page problem.
True.
Whenever the worst part of being a writer is looking at the blank page and getting the first sentence out, and you don't have that problem with AI.
well, that's one thing I've kind of self-discovered in like the producer world and in like film or the creative world here is before you mock me and talk too much crap,
I
just
can
let
just
me
keep-
finish my statement.
I did. You started that.
Is like from a producer world and a creative world, I think I'm really good at going from 2 to 10. Getting to that 0 to 1, I'm not that. I'm not the 0 to 1 guy.
Mhm.
I'm the, you have a morsel, a seedling of an idea. I can build upon that. And I can get it to its completion. I can get it to filming or an idea, write it, whatever. And I can produce that. But like that initial spark with the blank page, that's me. I suck at that.
There's
Someone hit you with a lot of ideas last night.
Not really.
So I think one
That's
of the thi-
God. Is that God talking? Where is it? So Hills.
Am I not on the screen?
He is.
You are on the screen. This is a very weird experience for me.
Is this your first time?
This is my very first time.
Is it really?
Yes,
Wow.
I'm a studio virgin.
He normally does in the field at the events
Right.
live podcasting thing.
Like, had my arm twisted. You're
And
like
you're the
slowly.
host.
You're like slowly
Yeah.
boil. I'm like the frog getting boiled alive 1 degree at a time.
Well, if
It's good.
you want a
Yeah.
channel,
Welcome.
20,000 a month.
That's that's great.
I think
Let's
that
do it. Sign me up.
for so many different people, like AI has helped. Like for you, you're saying it's the creativity. It's helping you
Absolutely.
for the very first, the blank page. I've heard that a lot. For me, physically, I'm just an awful typist, right? So for me to come up and type what I'm looking for, I've found that it's a lot easier to, with a smaller amount of words, get to the point and being able to cut and paste and then put my story together.
So if I get a text from you, it's gonna be coming out of Chat GPT. Is that
Well,
what?
no, if you get a text from me, there's a pretty good chance that all the letters aren't there.
Okay,
Trust
got
me.
it.
Trust me. His texts are not Chat GPT.
Yeah, they're not.
Frank.
You're not getting very far with that. I just
so we're
learned how
all,
to use
so we're all-
emojis.
so we're all low IQ at this table except for Mark. Is this what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
Is this
yeah.
right?
I'm gonna put that on my LinkedIn
You
or
know.
something. I don't know.
No, so there's
Everyone around me has low IQ.
Just the pull quote for the episode there.
no, I just think it for me, it's really difficult. Literally, just physically, I can't type. I almost didn't make it through high school because the only thing that I didn't get finished was typing, because a typing test without looking, you had to do it within a certain period of time. I just can't type.
Yeah.
And it's been very helpful coming up with content, because I'll read it and I know, nope, that's crap. Nope, that's not, nope. But it's there, right?
Mhm.
So it's just easier to structure. And it
Well-
does it in a pretty structured way. It kind of knows where you're going.
Well, what's is exciting to me about AI, to keep talking about it, is like one of my best friends growing up, he learned like C++ when he was in grade school. And in that era of coding, there wasn't the 1,000 different languages there are now.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like at the time, every year there was a new language, and he was able to learn the new language every year. So by the time he's 20 or 22 or whatever it is, like he has all the bases covered of all the coding languages that you would need.
And now they're irrelevant.
And well, that's not true. But what I'm saying is like,
Kinda.
What's that?
let me finish my point, guys.
No.
Guys,
Python. Let's see. We got Python. What else, Mark? What
PHP.
PHP.
That one still exists. That one's from like 50 years ago.
Okay, now you may finish your story.
thank you for that, breaking of it. Anyway, but my point to that story is like he was able, like if somebody coming in 2005 to try to learn all languages at once, there would be a tidal wave of things that they had to learn just to get to the competency of he was already at, just from naturally able to step stone up. My point to bring that up is somebody who's 12 years old, 15 years old, playing with AI, where they'll be at 20 years old or 25 years old, and how far advanced they'll be in the AI world versus like, say, us who are like, oh, well, I could summarize a thing.
It's a great default to wake up to as a cognizant young person. Like, because my default place to wake up to as a cognizant young person was the DOS prompt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I still feel the most comfortable is typing something in and having it spit something back out at me, which is probably why I became a developer for the first part of my career and why I ended up being a writer for the next part of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But, after that, it's, it was the GUI, right? And after that was social media. These are not great realities to wake up to as a young person, but coming back to something that is text-based and primarily information delivery, as well as like execution multiplier. Like that's the other thing. For $20 a month, which is like the Chat GPT-4, subscription model, you have the smartest person in the world that will do anything you ask them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they make up answers because they don't want to disappoint you for some reason, but they actually will do what you ask them to do.
But here's the thing but sorry, just on that, but because going back to what we said earlier, we live in this world where nobody fact checks anyway, so it's okay.
Exactly.
Listen, half the adults are making stuff up anyway as they go along.
Yeah, I think that it goes back to the tools, right? We have better tools. We started off with a crescent wrench, then we had the adjustable wrench, and then we got to the electric or the whatever wrench, and now we have electric stuff, right? So I think that these are just, we're building. We started off with DOS, right? We basic, and then C++, C++, then X, Y, Z, Python, Django, keep going, right? And then now we're at using language with these huge language models to create cooler toys. Like what's going to happen 20 years from now? I don't know. It's probably pretty cool. We'll see.
Right.
If we survive it.
You're so optimistic.
If we survive it.
We're going to be here in 20. No, I'm just kidding.
I will.
Oh,
I'll be here in 20 years. No, I mean, my kids, the stuff that my kids have access to at 13, 11 that they're dealing with and running through the Chat GPT, doing a 3D printer, asking questions, pulling it off, pulling the specs off, then figuring out, asking what a 3D rendering software they need to get access to, and it spits out, so then they use it. And I'm like texting a buddy, hey, which one? And then by the time I pull it off by the text, they're like, oh, I've already downloaded it and have it running. So
do you ever feel pressure to pretend like you're smarter than you are?
Oh, heck no.
Kids?
No.
Because it sounds like they're way more advanced than you are.
That is true.
And I'm not trying to make a joke at all.
No. I mean,
serious.
Everybody has their own specific fields. So, the one that's big in tech, my job isn't, as a parent, my job is not to be the best in absolutely everything. It's to give them the tools for them to become the best that they are. So if they're if they need access to the tech, they're going to some guy like Mark, and they've got access to, somebody to do it. And if they know, they're going to know more than me at a young age. So they built the 3D printer.
So just a quick shift in conversation, only because each one of y'all have recommended a book separately.
What book is this? I'm intrigued now.
I bought it on audiobooks. I have yet to listen to it yet, because it's like 50 hours long.
Atlas Shrugged.
Cryptonomicon.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Cryptonomicon.
Cryptonomicon. Cryptonomicon. I mean, come on, like
That's
you're
formative.
running the merge, and you're.
Yeah.
And you've never actually read it. That's like that's pathetic.
Why-
I mean,
have you read Atlas Shrugged?
All of them. Yeah.
There's only one.
Anthem. Like, I've
It's
read
not
every
Atlas
one of them.
Shrugged, though. There's only one Atlas
What-
Shrugged.
I have an alter.
What would you like? Would you like me to? Would you like me to
In
quote
my
any
house.
part of it? Yeah, no,
Yes,
I've
I
got
want
a
you
lot
That's
of
not
to
true,
verbatim
actually.
say the 100-page
I went through my Ayn Rand
money
pen.
quote.
So I will not pay any more than I think a person is worth, nor would I expect them to accept any less than they think
Wait,
they're
is
willing
this
to get.
now we're going into?
Yeah, no, that was Atlas Shrugged.
Is that a Dagny Taggart or is that a Howard Rourke?
Is
What's
Hank
the-
Hank Reardon?
Hank
Hank Reardon?
Hank
Who is
No, that
John
was-
Galt?
No, that was actually John Galt whenever he was on
Yes.
TV when they
Oh.
were giving him a hard time. Anyway, so no, I've read
This
most
is
of
a
her stuff.
nightmare.
I right? Nobody like our segment of
Why?
the
'Cause you
internet
hate-
is
you hate
interested in
Atlas
this.
Shrugged?
The most important thing though is a dog. Anybody have a dog?
Yes, of course.
We should only talk. You don't because you don't like.
I love seeing Sohail right there shaking his head
he
back
doesn't
there.
like Ayn Rand though.
no.
Well,
It's
he,
okay.
he wouldn't.
Freak.
He wouldn't. she escaped exactly what he wants to happen. So
Yeah.
it's totally understandable.
It happens.
He's like, wait, when can I join the? Oh wait, he has complete control of the entire
he's
thing. He's gonna start
deleting this whole episode.
monologuing.
Are you kidding?
Right, we think that we're on camera.
Yeah,
we're
I-
off camera now, and he's gonna
I
start.
muted all of y'all. I'm just
Like an hour ago.
It's like anything I disagree with. Boop.
So, I mean, really, if we do want to bring it back to like Web3 and money and or other, you were talking about the $1 trillion coin. Now, I don't know much about that. I do know that Gavin Newsom just came back and said that he expects that there will be either 32 trillion in debt before long.
Mhm.
The state of California, or
No,
US?
just
not
in
Canada,
general. No, he just said that. No, the state of California they've got their own issues
Yeah.
in general.
But Gavin Newsom's the California
of course,
governor, right?
Yeah. But that was separately. Those are two different.
And you say, of
But-
course,
so-
I am a Texan,
So
therefore I don't know anything other.
Other than all the
Yeah.
other than the California license
Wait,
plates all
is-
through Texas, I'm not quite sure how we wouldn't know who
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom is.
Right.
the story that I picked up on that
Mhm.
the $1 trillion coin came into my view was Janet Yellen was, I think, testifying in front of Congress. That was the Bard story that I was checking when we went
Got
to
it.
lunch the other day,
Mhm.
where it misquoted the price of Bitcoin. But the what she was saying is she was starting to sound like a tinfoil hatter with like the shrill, it's like, look, we cannot continue down the path we're on. Like this is going to wreck the economy. We cannot. She was talking specifically about not being able to America not being able to default. Defaulting on our debts will bring about worldwide.
God damn. A Wall Street Journal subscription. This happens to me at least 5 times a week.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I
it
have
happens,
one
yeah.
for a small fee. I'd be happy to give.
Yeah.
You guys, did y'all hear the Warren Buffett answer to debt, Keynesianism? Talking the 13-year-old that asked him a question on how sustainable is the U.S. debt,
I didn't. No.
and it was a 4 or 5 minute. He kind of ran through it, and I don't know if Sohail's pulling it up right now.
I think so. Hopefully.
But no, his thing on Keynesianism was we just don't know how long it can last, and we can't change it. We don't want to change it because then it will end.
Mhm.
But I think it was a very nice way of saying we're going to ride it until the wheels come off, which is fine as long as the wheels stay on. The real problem is if you're not prepared when the wheels do come off, and most people aren't great at capital allocation, so they're not prepared for that as a possibility.
Just because it's been a minute since I've been in college, not too many minutes.
You went to college?
It's Keynesian and what's the other one? Supply side, or just what are the two economics and what's?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of actually. We're not even in a Keynesian system
go.
anymore. We're in something called modern monetary theory, which is an evolution.
That's fake. That's a made up
Well, it's-
economic policy.
but it's what our policymakers believe in,
it's what they
profess to believe in.
I think that with what we see right now with interest rates going up and the market starting its uncertainty reversion back to the mean you're seeing that MMT isn't real. It's actually a horrible idea.
Yeah. No, I
So,
mean, no argument there. I'm just saying this is what our policymakers purport to believe in. It's no longer even Keynesianism. It's MMT. And
Which
so,
is
And
what?
for
Modern
right, I was going to
monetary
ask for
theory.
Ryan's. This is for Ryan's benefit, not mine.
Thank you. It's like, what is MMT?
Modern monetary theory. My
Oh,
wife,
okay.
my wife can answer like that. I can't. I couldn't give you a
It's-
textbook definition to
yeah,
it.
MMT is actually beyond me to properly explain, just because I believe it's so foolish that I can't really unsarcastically explain what it is, other than it's a fantasy belief that the things can go up and to the right in perpetuity.
Look at
forever.
that. So it's pulled up.
So
It's
with
sync.
what is going on right now with the debt ceiling thing, that's kind of a frustrating distraction, is that, like, what's the point of even calling it a debt ceiling if you're not going to enforce it, right? And ultimately the truth of the matter is we can't default. If we truly defaulted, like if we just said we're not paying any more bills, you've got the cessation of the government employees working. You have literally the rails come off, and then you have revolution, period. That's it. End of story. And it's like your rich brother saying that I'm not paying because I don't like you anymore. It's not going to happen. Right.
Mhm.
So they're going to fix it, whether they technically default and they push it out and they say, okay, they're going to pay the riskless assets. They're not going to default on the 90-day treasury bill. Right.
Mhm.
They may default on the payment for the 30-year or the 20-year, something further out. And that default may look something like, we'll make up your payments 6 months from now and we'll make it up to you. But it's not like the world's going to end. They can't. They'll cut some non-essential goods and service. But would they actually really, really default? No, can't.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, there's,
Talking about real value terms, or because we're defaulting real value terms.
yeah.
Well, based on, I don't know.
Well,
It's such a deep
Yeah,
conversation.
Anyway,
It's
like,
more
now we're down to
complicated.
like 4 people on the internet that are still that if we happen to come across them would actually watch
So
it.
if you go back to, I mean, like, to me, where this leads is the conversation you had with Sahil a few weeks ago, where you're talking about how we've been exporting inflation.
Yeah.
And that's what has kept
And it will continue to
MMT
until everyone
alive.
catches up. Yeah,
And
exactly.
is the fact that we have been creating a silent tax for years by inflating the cost of or inflating the value of a dollar, but doing so at the expense of other countries who have to use our dollar or else.
Absolutely.
Which is no longer the case because of BRICS. 40 nations have joined BRICS. So as soon as that goes into effect, we will no longer have the ability to export inflation. I just recapped your entire clip that you
Okay.
published. So I don't know what else you have to say, but like that was what I got out of it.
Yeah, it's everybody wants what we have, right? Everyone throughout the world still wants what we have. We still have some, we've got the best freedoms out there, if you will. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all the people at the border trying to get in,
Mhm.
right? And as long as there are people that want that, they're going to continue to do stuff that's going to make them enough money to try to get here, or to try to get to a place where we would be here, which allows us to exploit. And that's
I'm going to say something like really inflammatory.
Mhm.
I would like to think that if I were anywhere but here, if I were in the same situation as the people that are flooding across the border, that I would have the courage and the work ethic to travel 2,000 miles to get across the border to get here.
Why is that inflammatory?
I don't know.
No, I
That's
mean,
like-
so-
but I mean, we like you from a concept of history, geography, we are an insanely wealthy nation,
Mhm.
all of us, and other people wanting to get here. We're in the top fractions of percent
Mhm.
throughout the entirety of human history, and people wanting to come here, flooding in. I think there's, we look at it from a standpoint of how bad things are, and as bad as they are, and we could agree on the debt issues and the dollar and past generations punting it to future generations, which is happening. It's still, I can't think of anywhere else that's where we've that is a better situation either now or
Right. I think part of your statement goes back to what Mark was saying about exporting inflation. But as far as like, I think the inflammatory part comes from like, because the politicizing of, do you let people in? Do you not let the people in? And that's a completely different topic.
Elon's response was the best.
Right. Well, before I want to approach the, like, from the people coming in. Absolutely. That. I think if anybody that can empathize or just look at that situation is like, you were, as a parent, I'm assuming your role is to try to put the best situation you can for your family, period. And if the best situation is to get to America, that's what you're going to do. Now, the American politics and should we throw up a wall or should we reject them, that's a completely different topic altogether. But I think the reason why could also go back to the exporting of inflation.
Right. Well, I think we're close to solving all the world's problems.
No,
today.
I think we go on for another
Dude,
3 hours.
I don't even understand like 90% of the problems. So
Well, I was gonna say we could go for like another couple hours and try to solve them all, but my wife is waiting in the parking lot to pick me up.
Okay. Well, that
Yeah,
case, let's
so
end it, yeah.
should probably wrap it up before she no longer waits in the parking lot for me.
dang it,
that's a
you
valid-
just said that. And I'm thinking back to a text that my wife sent me that we need to pick up the car by 6:00 and it's 5:30. I think we established that we're bad
have no
bad
wife.
husbands at the
What,
moment.
what bad husband thing have you done?
Well,
Oh, tell them.
I'm so very lucky. Sohail mentioned to me that we were going to do the show, and then all of a sudden it was canceled because your guest wasn't able to make it. Hopefully
Right.
we'll be able to redo that. And I said, no, we have, can we do something? Because, that'll give me the opportunity to not be voluntold to go to where my wife works and work in the school with the children.
Oh no! So she's not a viewer of the show.
No.
There you
but-
go.
You made it seem worse than like I told you still need to be here. You didn't say, hey, I got to get out of something.
He's like, I gotta get away from the kids.
All I have to say is that, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
So before we wrap up, are we welcome back to this? Because you've only done it once, this roundtable thing, right?
Yeah, man.
Are we okay?
Yeah, that was.
No. Wait, listen, that's when the camera cuts off and he's gonna be like, don't ever show up on my show again. I was nice in front of the camera. Don't show up.
The relevancy, because like this channel is like tech, crypto.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about more social. Is that okay?
That's
It's
like
the merge. It's the intersection of all of those things. And I think it really fits, honestly,
Good.
with all these perspectives and you bringing in your small business mind, Frank bringing
What do you mean by small? What do you mean by small business mind?
your small mind
Yeah,
that's in
yeah.
business. And on that note,
I know.
we'll catch you guys
Yeah.
later.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week. Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.